Welcome back to FAWKES News on this fine Wednesday. As promised, did Dan Bongino and Cash Patel sell out to big government, or is he playing 3D chess? Now, this is normally not what FAWKES News is about. We don't really do a lot of speculation and this kind of stuff, but we weren't able to get this in this fun little, as Dan Bongino would say, this cutesy time. We weren't able to get it in on the main show. And just real quick, though, on the main show today, I made a statement about South Africa and about the media's extreme response to Donald Trump's take and their overt lie, and how BBC, India, CNBC, SNBC, how they all collaborated together to bring out the same message and send journalists to the same place and to say the same exact things completely and overtly out of context. And it makes you say, why? Why does the media care so much? It's almost as if it was really happening. It was like when the Hunter Biden laptop thing dropped, they cared so much because it was true. That's why they made such a big deal about it, because it was true. Or the Ashley Biden diary, right? They made such a big deal about it, And they crucified everybody because of it, including the first media company in America's history to be ransacked and have a search warrant by the FBI because it was true. We now know that it was true. So what's going on in South Africa? Is it true? And and it was such a great episode today. And then guess what? Right before I do this show, I'm checking to make sure our show dropped. Guess what drops 2 hours after our show dropped? The Rubin Report. Guess what he says on the Rubin Report? He starts to show off with, why is the media lying to us about this whole South Africa? He's like, I find it very odd and I want to talk about it today. And he even decided to change up his show to talk about the South Africa thing. And I'm not saying that Rubin listened to ours and then went and rewrote his old true to say what we are doing. What I'm saying is that we are on the same. This is what, when you're on the path, when you're not just picking up the crumbs and consuming them, but you're looking to see why the crumbs are being left, and you're going up ahead. You're scouting the trail out before you can see the pitfalls. You can see the ambushes coming. And I think that's why Rubin and some of these other free thinkers are coming up with this same, again, we came up with the same conclusion, even though I had not listened to their show first. I hadn't listened to my show or anything like that. So I just think that was really, really interesting. But we went so deep into the whole South African debacle that I wanted to bring Deadleg back here with me now to talk something funsy and cutesy. And this was, last week we talked about, remember when Pam Bondi, let's go back. Tyler S says, there is a reason the statement "you can't handle the truth" is so famous. Thank you, Tyler. By the way, it's cool to see you guys back here live, unprompted, 3:00 or vaguely prompted, I should say. Hi, y'all. I won't be here too long because I need to get the kids from school. Well, that's why we're not going to be here very long. Let me just go ahead and jump into it. A week ago, we talked about Pam Bondi, and she was sitting at a table, and a nanny comes by and starts to question Pam Bondi over the Epstein thing. If you remember this, I'm not going to go back. You can go back into our old episodes and listen to it, or you can just YouTube it yourself. And Pam Bondi says in a public space, in a restaurant, and she says, like, the hardest thing about releasing all the Epstein files is that there are tens of thousands, was her exact words, tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with little children, with younger children. Now, that's what she said. So then she comes out about 3 weeks later and just goes ahead and admits to that publicly. Like, she was in a public space and publicly admitted it to a nanny who was working for James O'Keefe. Am I correct there? Was she working for James O'Keefe at the time?
I'll look for it up.
Project Veritas. Let's go back. I don't remember the story. I don't want to get it too wrong here. But so now she was forced to go public with it. There was really no backtracking on it. And she says that there is these tens of thousands of videos that they're having to go through. And so there's just a lot to the Epstein files, more than just meets the eye, right? They're just giving the surface. And then Dan Bongino, go ahead, Did you find
But
it?
they just called her a bogus nanny. They don't say that she has specific ties with O'Keefe.
Right. They're never going to give James O'Keefe the credit he's due. By the way, Project Veritas was the media outlet that was rated by the FBI that I just mentioned it of. And I think James O'Keefe should go down in the history books as somewhat of a hero or a legend for his independent journalism. So let me just go here. Right after this, I want you to follow the breadcrumbs as the media would have you do that. Dan Bongino gets up and he says, I just want to clarify things. Well, let me just play it for you. This is what they said.
Suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to get, I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
I know it's hard work. You said.
And you.
So let me stop you there. If you don't know Dan Bongino, if you don't, what do you say? O'Keefe said that? James O'Keefe? Anyway, Murphy Theory says, let me just go to the chats really fast. Was just on Tim Pool talking about that. The undercover wasn't even for Pam Bondi. She was talking loud enough to be heard by everyone.
So the person that heard Pam Bondi talking about this wasn't even trying to get her, like, wasn't there, like, oh, I'm here, like how O'Keefe has usually his stuff. He was just in the room, like at another table, and like, oh, they're talking about stock trading over here and the Epstein files over here.
I see what you're saying there. Yeah. So it wasn't like a James O'Keefe, like undercover nanny.
Yeah. So, and it wasn't like it wasn't the whole thing behind it was it wasn't a private thing. It was
right. No, it wasn't private. It was not private at all. Right. Like, and I watched the tape. I watched the video, and really today, this little segment, this quickie here, is not really about this. It's more about this is the question that I have here is Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, have they bought out? Have they sold out? I think this was a very weird interview with Kash and Dan Bongino. And I'm going to go back. Somebody mentioned Simple. I want to go back to a few years ago when Dan Bongino was actually on Tim Pool's podcast. I've been to Tim Pool's compound twice now, and it's pretty cool. I do listen to him quite a bit, but I do remember this episode. But I want to give my viewers, the listeners here, just a taste of what Dan Bongino was prior to taking his role at the FBI and with the Trump administration. So this is him on Tim Pool a couple of years ago, and just this is a little longer of a clip, but I want to play it in its totality. And you can find this at Timcast IRL. But here, let me play it in its entirety for you.
It kind of like, it's like a tick burrowing under my skin. I get a call.
Let's go.
Yeah, this is going to get hairy. You guys ready?
Yes.
Right, no more school. Yes. This is like live YouTube. You ready for this? I don't know if you guys are ready. I get a call, I don't know, about 4 years ago. It's from, let's say, a friend. Prior line of work thing, right? Guy says, listen. And this guy who calls me is an unimpeachable source. This guy's not like some ham and egg or tomato can guy throwing out some theory about a UFO he saw 72 years ago, whatever. This is like a legit, no-nonsense guy. Guy you trust with your, wife, kid, and car, right?
I want you to notice, I just want you to pay attention as I play this, how articulate Dan Bongino is and how transparent he allows himself to be. Right? He's trying to prove to you that this is a credible source. He's given you as much as he could possibly give you to make you believe what he's saying. Okay? And this is like par for course for Dan Bongino. If you've ever listened to Dan Bongino's show, this is like what he does. So hold on.
Right? He says, I got sent on a temporary assignment once. And on that assignment, I got sent out with on the WCD detail, William Clinton detail. And I knew this guy well. And he says, Dan, I got to share this with someone. He said, I go on a plane and Bill, Clinton gets on the plane with this guy. And it turns out later the guy's Epstein. Now, this guy I'm talking to, this source, he don't know who Jeffrey Epstein is. He's just getting on the plane doing the thing, the whole, protection gig, right? He says, I get on the plane and there are these girls who are obviously not of age who are on this plane. They're clearly young. These are not women. These are girls. And he says, I see Clinton disappear into the back. he goes, I don't know what happened. I'm not saying what happened because all I know is he disappeared and these girls were back there or whatever. And he said they land at the next stop, wherever it was. And he goes up to the boss on the detail and he says, I ain't getting back on this plane. Because he's a temp. He's not used to like whatever Clinton was up to with the whole shenanigans thing. And this guy's clear as the driven snowman. He don't want to mess around with this. He says, whatever just happened back there, like, I don't want any piece of it. They sent him home. They sent that guy home. And he's never temped to that detail again. Now, remember, all those Blackberries on that detail. Here's where the story gets super weird. The guy tells me, months or a couple weeks later, when you lose property in the Secret Service, an email goes out. It'll say like, hey, I lost his phone. And it gets logged into NCIC or whatever it is. And everybody knows. So basically, if you find this guy's gun, God forbid, or his phone, it's now effectively stolen property, right? All of a sudden, all the Blackberries on that detail for the agents start showing up like, oh, this guy lost his BlackBerry. Holy shit. Wow, that's so crazy. How'd that happen? I'm like, no. He says, yes. He says it was the craziest thing. Like, oh, look, Agent Joey Bag of Donuts, missing BlackBerry. This is around the whole time, like the Clinton thing's going on. So fast forward this story, right? He tells me that. About a year and a half after that, I'm in a green room at Fox, and I'm not going to say who because they didn't give me permission to share it, but the short story, but not who they are. Says, Epstein's an intelligence asset for people in the Middle East, right? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. I'm like, you sure of that? The person, let's say, is like, I'm absolutely sure of that he's either a witting or unwitting asset, intelligence asset, meaning his plane and that island, the cameras, there's a big assumption out there that these videotapes were exclusively in the custody of Epstein. That's a huge mistake. The reason they wanted this story to go away is because there's an assumption like, oh yeah, Epstein had him. No, he wasn't the only one who had him, according to this source. These assets, that's why this blackmail story makes so much sense. Which Middle Eastern countries they are, I don't know. But this person, who's a very, very good reporter, I mean, aces, right? Swore Epstein was either a witting or unwitting intelligence asset, and they may have had his plane wired up, and they're the ones who have all this stuff. So the point is, to sum it up, how do you know some of these countries aren't going to some of these power players who aren't making decisions? Because, hey, you wouldn't want this video out there, right? How do you know?
100%.
So I wanted to play that because I wanted to give you guys just a kind of a taste of what Dan Bongino was like when he had his podcast. By the way, hundreds of millions of dollars on his podcast. Well, I shouldn't say that. Probably. Oh, I don't know. What's Dan Bongino worth? What was his show worth? It had to be worth millions. I mean, he probably got thousands of dollars of super chats alone per day.
He is estimated to make $4.9 million last year.
Okay. So like $5 million.
$5 million. His new salary is $221,000. His salary in 2023 was 2.3, in 2024, 4.9. He can afford an Uber.
Yeah. So not hundreds of millions. That was way off. That's why we have Josh here, though. 4.9 million.
Still
might
millions.
as well be 100 million to me. You know what I mean? Like 1 million's 100 million to me. That's 1 million's a fuck ton of money to me. But so he leaves 4.9 million to go work for the Trump administration to be head of the FBI, along with Kash Patel and all these things. And now his tone, his pitch, his tone of voice is this.
Epstein.
They have their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
Look at this blank stare. Look at the body language on Dan Bongino.
He killed himself. You want me to get? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
I know it's hard work.
That's not Dan Bongino. That's not the Dan Bongino that I listened to for years. And I'm not going to tell you I was the biggest Dan Bongino fan. I listened to him because he and I podcast in the same rhythm. He and I fall into a very similar rhythm. And the only reason I ever listened to Dan Bongino was because so many people said I reminded them of Dan Bongino. And I was like, oh, let me go. We just have different terminology. He says cutesy time, and I say like bamboozled, and I say things like that. But he and I do have a lot of the same mannerisms. And so I used, there are titles that would draw me in to listen to his show. And I listen to so many different podcasts. I mean, so many, from Breaking Points, the Rubin Report, Vince. I listen to, Howard Stern from time to time, still to this day. I just, the list goes on. Shade Room, Tasha K, Pop Culture Crisis. I pretty much go down the line. I listen to lots of shows pretty much all day long, at least 12, 13 hours a day. I'm trying to consume some kind of content and then doing research from there, and then trying to figure out what's the most important news to give to my fans, which are generally first responders. So when I see Dan Bongino say something very quick, very concise, and without using any of the Dan Bongino army, he knows what to say, and his fans are very loyal. Some of the most loyal fans on the planet. They know when he's trying to drive something home, and that wasn't him driving something home with his fans. Like, if he wanted his fans, which are millions, if he wanted them to believe what he was saying, he would have used terminology familiar to them, and that would have put them at ease. And I don't think he did it on. I think he was short and concise to show his fans this is why, in his honor, this is cutesy time. Okay, this is cutesy time. This is not what my show is about. This is a special segment. If you're just tuning in for the first time, this is a special segment. This is not what FAWKS ever does. Okay, please. This is not what we do. But we're having fun. We just didn't get to it in our earlier show today, which was a rager. But this is a fun little time to speculate on Dan Bongino and Kash Patel. So here's my take. This is and I want to hear yours. And of course, I want to leave it up to the live chats. I see some people already weighing in and wanting to say some stuff, so I want to bring it over there. Listening to Dan Bongino long enough, I think Dan Bongino made a statement there to his fans that's not the end of the story. And I don't know this either. I don't think he lied, because I don't think anybody's questioning that Epstein didn't kill himself. I think it's like, we all know that he committed suicide. I think what we all think, or what the majority of people's theory is that he was allowed to commit suicide, that the camera's not working, the corrections officers not doing their rounds, their correction, him getting moved to certain cells. Like, we think that was the bigger plot, but I don't think anybody thinks that like Hillary Clinton's people went into his room and hung him, for them, if that makes sense.
Well, if you're working in that, let's just say hypothetically, if you're working in that intel world, you've got a lot of things on you, or you got a lot of things that you're going to be brought out to light. Like, there's a lot of weight hanging over this guy's head by his actual head. He's got all this weight of everything hanging over him. That's the easy way out. You can let the conditions happen. This is the biggest, most prolific sex trafficking case in the history of man that we know of. And instead of making sure that we absolutely have these conditions, that we're checking on him on the hours like we're supposed to, the cameras are working, we're putting him in a cell with no, let's just throw him in the back and just let the guys go to sleep. You can let it happen, and it still satisfies the end goal that you want. You don't want him to testify. You don't want him to let all the other dirty air out. So if he kills himself and takes care of the job for you, you can set the conditions to let him do it.
Yeah, exactly. And you can kind of like say like, hey, you kill yourself, or, you know what I mean? And here's the other thing though. And I've called Dan Bongino out on this before, because Dan Bongino was wrong on the Donald Trump search warrant, fundamentally wrong. And he knew he was wrong, and he knew that he was misleading when he said the things that he said. And we covered that. And that's when I said, I don't know, like it's not like he accidentally misspoke. I say a lot of stupid stuff. There's a lot of things that I'm like, I didn't get that right. I'll tell you, I didn't get it right. But like, he really doubled down on the whole search warrant thing, as if like he hasn't done a search warrant in his whole life. And that was very confusing to me, because if he knows that it's copy and paste, and especially the ROE, the rules of engagement, they're always copy and paste. They have been for every agency. And he knows that. So it's not, it's actually more probably than not that they just copied and pasted. And he should articulate that happens on every search warrant across the board, because the ROE never changes. You're not going to change the ROE for any search warrant for any reason.
I'll go out there. I had an Excel, or I had a folder that was full of Word documents that had case reports, rules of engagement, search, everything, like the cheat sheet. I would just go into the search spot, type in what kind of case I'm working on, and it has my narrative, has exactly what I do. Just literally copy.
Oh yeah,
and paste. That's
everybody
all
had
it was.
One. Everybody had one. So like, I don't think that was like this huge bombshell thing that they were carrying guns, and he knew that. So I always wondered, like, was Dan Bongino, of course, knowing his history and knowing where he worked and what side of the fence he worked and how he made it into Fox News and made it to being a $5 million a year podcaster. Like, it was almost like he was groomed to be where he was at. And I don't know that it was just because he's necessarily like great at podcasting, but he was very good. He always said the right things. He always said exactly what you wanted him to say. Now there's two thoughts. Either one, he's just that good of a person, because I try to be, and you can believe that or not. But I honestly try to do the news so that I can make the world a better place. And I don't do anything for clicks or for drama. And I'm tempted. Sometimes I'm tempted. Sometimes I'm tempted to get on a story knowing that this story is just going to generate clicks, but I know that it's not the whole story, and that the only reason I would be coming out is so that I would be first and I wouldn't have the facts to give you. So I do try very hard. Now you can believe that or not. Dan Bongino might be the same way. Dan Bongino might be, and here, if you're a critical thinker, you have to go down both paths. Either A, he is a good person and he does have integrity and he does mean everything he says, and therefore he would be playing 3D chess. And you would have to look at the finer points, like the mannerisms, kind of like body language. I don't think when he was talking to the media there that was typical to Dan Bongino. Now, devotee in the chats, devotee. I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce that, so I'm not trying to be an asshole. But it says he has to be responsible now, like a normal person with a job. Truthful. Sure. Maybe that's it. Maybe he was wrong all those years, that all these sources that he totally believed in and the way that he spoke with such conviction, maybe he's wrong and he's just taking it on the chin. That's a good theory. Probable theory, actually. That might be a probable theory.
If they're making mistakes, well, here's my thought is, if they're working in investigation, obviously the people that they're investigating are still there, or they're involved. They're in the proxy. They might still be employed by the FBI. They still might be employed by CIA, NSA, whoever they're employed by that's been involved in this, but they still might be there. You don't want to just raise these alarm flags and go, "Hey, everybody, I'm going to be looking through your emails. Hey, everybody, all this." You don't want to raise those alarm flags. So the other thing you could do too is like, look, I've seen it. It's done. It's squashed, and then try to just move on and let your agents and let your investigation kind of work in silence, and then you bring the results out.
And so that, being an investigator and being somebody that's trying to play 3D chess, and you're an investigator, you're going to put out misleading statements. And let me give you an example from my time in law enforcement. I don't want to give away too many facts, so I have to kind of tell you a story, because I'm not here to, like, just for the sake of being independent. I don't still want to blow away other people's strategies. Like, I always hated that when the news did that with the war in Iraq, or like when SEALs like give you tactics. They talk about tactics. And it's like, dude, you couldn't give some false truths there. Like, you had to be right on spot with the fucking tactics. Like we get it. You don't have to. So here we go. Like, we had a homicide, and the guy was there was somebody found dead, and there was some things that didn't add up with the body. And so we knew it was gang related. And so what we decided to do, and we worked with the gang unit on there, was we were going to do stops, and we were going to ask people specifically about the murder. And then we were going to say things like, well, yeah, they're not going to solve it. They're probably going to move it to a cold case because they can't figure it out. However, they had figured it out. It's just the guy that they did, the number one suspect, was gone. He had fled town. And they thought that if enough people started spreading the rumor that they were going to push this over to a cold case, that this guy would then on his own come back and think he was safe, and then they were going to get him. Okay. Like, that kind of stuff. Dan Bongino going into this whole January 6th pipe bomb thing, going into the cocaine thing. Do you really think, and this is where I'm saying, like, this is where I think he's playing a chess game, and this is fun to speculate. And as he would say, cutesy time. Do you really think that anybody cares who brought cocaine into the White House 3 fucking years ago? Do you think the American people really, really care? I mean, it's like at this point they were fucking on the House floor, having butt sex and videotaping it. Like, we know that Secret Service have already written books about the insane alcoholism. And listen, I've worked with celebrities now for 6 or 7 years. And I've told this story before, where it's so disappointing to see how much blow and cocaine and sex goes on, and infidelity that goes on between celebrities and minor celebs alike. I was a sommelier for a celebrity one time, a celebrity that I love. I think he's awesome, and I think he's so cool. And then he was just running lines of blow in the bathroom. Like a child, though. He was even acting like he's hiding, except all the cocaine is out on a tray, just like you would see in the movies, and they're all being like laughing. It's like you're not hiding it from anyone. You're just acting like middle school children. And I can't even watch this guy's movies anymore because I'm like, God dang, that guy is such an actual loser in real life. Like, family doesn't love him. Wife doesn't love him. He doesn't love his wife. And I'm not even sure that he loves his life. Right? So I don't think anybody cares that there was cocaine in the White House. I think if you don't think that these people are on coke, they're on lots of different medications, over medicated, whatever, I think you're foolish. And I don't think the American people do want to know. Now, the pipe bomb thing is an interesting thing because we've all known that the pipe bomb was nefarious and that nobody creates an elaborate pipe bomb twice and fucks up something as small as putting wet gunpowder. You don't go through all that meticulous time and thinking only to put, faulty gunpowder in one, and in the other one, it's completely fake. You know what I mean? Those are two mistakes that don't get made by somebody that professional. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going camping, which is not mass killing folks, aren't you double checking all your gear 16 times over?
I just drove cross country and I checked my truck 5 or 6 times every day.
Yeah.
Before
I mean, you're not gonna do something that insane where you're gonna sneak onto the DNC and on the grounds right outside the DNC, knowing that there's cameras and everywhere, plan a bomb perfectly and do everything right, and it has this super elaborate timer on it, and then you didn't make sure that you put good gunpowder in it. That just doesn't make any sense at all. Right. So I think it's interesting that Dan Bongino is diving back into that story. But then also, if you look at the breadcrumbs, like I said from the beginning, remember, we have the whole Pam Bondi thing. We have Pam Bondi coming out and saying there's tens of thousands of tapes, which means that they have the tapes. And then you have very soon after that, Dan Bongino coming out and saying it was a suicide, very, very strangely, not in Dan Bongino form. And I mean, you could buy that he's just trying to be professional right now. Maybe he is. I don't think that's Dan Bongino style. I don't think he would do that to his fans. And I don't think he would tweet the things that he's tweeting. And if we go and we look at his Twitter is being very vague as well, alluding to, can you pull up some of his tweets on the Epstein stuff really quick? Most importantly, the one, again, guys, this wasn't part of a planned show. This isn't normally how FAWKES News rolls. So if you want our regular content, this is just, this is something more like we would do on our Patreon. We're just giving you a taste. We're having funsy times with this. Christopher Jordan says it's obvious he's playing chess. I would say so too. And I would say that if you listen to enough of Dan Bongino and you hear the styles of policing that he did and the styles of investigation, though, how he knows how people act and react to investigations. I mean, hell, even if you watch any good movie that was written by, here we go. Go ahead. You want to read it?
Well, he shared this from the FBI's New York office about all these missing children. Mm-hmm. It's something, missing children, Epstein Island, that there's a maybe connection there. In Dallas, where they arrested 2 people that overseen a criminal enterprising circumventing the American immigration laws by selling fraudulent visa applications.
I was more concerned with the tweet that he had put out about the Epstein stuff and that how he is actively working. And here's, I guess this was my point of the whole thing. And this is where the debate comes from is, I don't think you leave $4.5 million a year. You leave that for two reasons. Either one, you are a really good person. I don't know. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. Two, you leave it because there's more money where you're going. And those are the only two reasons. I can't think of another reason why you leave $4.5 million. It's either A, because you really, really believe in something, or two, you're going to make a lot more money going somewhere else. Those are the only two options. Now, let me present this to you. He was a good person. He did think he was going to be able to change their hearts and minds. He did think he was going to make a dent. He was going to get famous. He is going to get to write a big giant book, and he's going to be able to do this on the heels of doing the right thing. But he gets into office and they say, hey, now you're in the big leagues. And let me tell you how the big leagues work. You don't play by our rules and we will fucking kill you and your family. Not physically kill you, but we will make up whatever story we want. We will run your name. Your children will be ashamed to know you. Your wife who has cancer, or I mean, maybe it was Dan Bongino that actually had cancer. I can't remember which one had cancer, but we are going. I know that he's very close to his wife and he loves his wife a lot. We are going to make her question your love for her. We're going to do all of these things. It's not a game. We don't give a fuck about your morals, your principles. This is the game. You will either play by our rules, or this is all going to happen. Before you answer me, Dan, let me just be very clear. What's more important to you? Because we're going to win either way. You can either shut the fuck up, do your little investigations, whatever, as long as we allow you to do it or whatever, play the game, check the blocks, check the boxes, and that's fine. Go ahead and do your thing. We'll leave you alone. We'll steer you where you need to go when there's something we don't. When you're getting too close, we'll let you know. Or you can start opening your mouth now. We're going to destroy you and your family. We're going to destroy you publicly. We're going to humiliate you. We might even kill you, like for reals. Or, you're going to be living over your shoulder. And guess what? Our narrative's still going to be told because we're going to put you in jail. We're going to do all this stuff. And we're still going to win. Does that look like a man that's been defeated? Let me go back and play it. Like, look at his face, dude. And this is, again, none of this is real. None of this really matters. You don't have to watch this episode. I do encourage you to go back and listen to our other episode about South Africa. That was real news, real journalism. This is just fun, cutesy time. But let me play this for you one more time. Look at Dan's face.
Who's been in segregated housing.
Also, Kash Patel just like constantly looking off out into space as he's talking is also kind of a sign of like, I'm making shit up. I'm saying shit because I have to say shit. If you're celebrating what you say, if you believe what you're saying, you're looking at the camera the whole time. I know that because I do this for a living. And when I don't want to say something, I look off the camera like this. When I'm trying to think of something to make up, like I just did, like that story about the bringing the guy back, because I didn't want to give too much of the information. I had to look off, right? I had to look off the camera to figure out what I'm going to say. If I already know what I'm saying, I look straight at the camera the whole time.
Know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
I know it's hard work.
I don't know. I know when I saw that, I said, that's not Dan. Dan Bongino would, if he wanted you to believe him, he would have said he is not a guy that speaks in short sentences when he feels convicted of the truth. He wants to prove to you the truth. It's like, see when I don't know what I'm going to say, I look off. See, catch my mannerisms there. If I want to prove myself to you or to an advertiser, right, then I want to say things like, oh, well, I've done shows with Ken Shamrock. I've done shows with this celebrity, that celebrity, Chuck Liddell. I've done the TV series Office Joe was in episode 3, 4, 5. Like I would try to convince you to trust me and that I deserve to work with you or for you or advertise for you, whatever. I've written a book and then I would try to like upsell my book and much. I wouldn't just say like, I have a podcast and I wrote a book.
You can answer the questions, but also really get into answering the question. because he's answering a question. To me, it seems like he's answering a question in a way that you would just. I don't want to come back on this hill later on. Like it seems to me like when I want to die on this hill, I'm going to have all the evidence I need to. Well, you need to have all the evidence, but like you said, there is a different league once you get to that point. Like how many seats away is he from the president? He's the second in command with the FBI. That's not a small position. And he's been able to see things that not a lot of people have been able to see. The other thing is you and I both know that there's things that the government has been involved with, but we know that it's factual things. But if the general public in general, people will lose their minds. Look how easily they are swayed by the media saying, hands up, don't shoot. That was a lie. Every bit of that was a lie. Look at all the stuff with George Floyd. It doesn't take but just this. I don't need to have the facts right. I just need to be on the mic first. And then you can just ruin and just railroad them.
I like Milkman's post here. It says talk tough and then puss out. So let me just say this, Milkman 515. I went to SEER school, SEER C qualified, which is one of the highest levels of SEER, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. I've been to the government detainee portion of SEER. I've been to the hostage portion of SEER, and I've been to the POW portion of SEER, SEER C plus. Right? So there was SEER C, and then there was SEER C plus. And I went through special operations. And I can't talk a lot about SEER. Not allowed to. But I will tell you this. When I went there, I knew about SEER. I watched G.I. Jane, of course, right? I saw all the missing in actions. Okay, I grew up on Chuck Norris. I grew up on Sylvester Stallone and Rambo, right? And I thought in my head, right? I watched the movies. I thought, okay, I know that, you don't really know what SEER is until you get there. But you have this, through G.I. Jane and through some of the other movies, you have a very like a fantasy, like childlike mind of what SEER is. And so going into SEER, I was like, there's no way I'll talk. Right. And I'm a tough guy, and I'm like retarded strong. I'm dumb. I can take physical pain really, really well. And so it's going to be very hard. And I'm a smart ass by nature. I will tell you this, in my first 5 minutes of an interrogation room under SEER pressure, I completely caved. And I never went back. Matter of fact, I was so bad at it that I was convinced for sure that whenever it was going to end, because SEER is classified, they don't tell you when it ends. They don't give you an end date, because if you knew when the end was, you would just hold out to the end. So you don't know when SEER is going to end. And I thought in my brain, no matter what, like, I'm not going to be able to recover from this. I know, because it's very easy to say right now what you would do until you're faced with that reality of the consequences. I love my wife and my 5 kids. I know now, after I've been to SEER, I would never make a statement like, oh, no matter what, I would burn them down. I hate pedophiles. I think they're disgusting. I think they're disturbing Epstein. And for the good of the people, I would sacrifice my own life to tell the truth. I'll never say that. Because maybe I would in the right circumstances, but I don't think I'm going to ruin my children's lives and my wife's life for something I'm still not going to win in the end anyway. And I think that's where they get you. Milkman, you say you would, sure, but so you're going to give up all of that and you're still not going to win. So at the end of the day, you're just like Russell Brand, where you try to go and you try to uncover all of Hollywood and everything. And listen, Russell Brand wasn't threatened with death or anything like that, but Russell Brand also is never going to be in another movie. His career's done now. He's got a lot of money, so he could do that. What if Russell Brand was on the up? What if he hadn't made it yet? What if he wasn't worth millions already? That he already had millions of dollars set aside, that he's already done. He would, you know what I mean? He would not have exposed even the little bit that he would expose. And you're going to expose it all, and you're still going to lose. And when you're faced with those facts, I don't think a lot of people have the intestinal fortitude. I think a lot of people think that they do. And I learned that from SEER, because I went to SEER with, I don't know, what was in my class, 28 guys who thought they were the best in the world. We had a couple of SEALs in my class. Everybody else was in the Green Beret course. I think there were some Delta operators that got rolled up into our SEER. And there was a couple of French folks that got rolled up into our SEER. Don't really know their stories or anything about them, but I didn't see a single one of them not break. I didn't see a single one of them not be a coward. So I've seen the best in the world all say the same things, all gone through the craziest of training. So it's not really in real life. It's not really realistic. And to think, so, I don't know, right? We don't know what Dan Bongino says, but I know that when you are a father and you have a lot to lose, maybe if you're just a fucking internet nerd and you don't Snowden. Yeah, I'll give you Snowden. I think Snowden's a legend. I think
hiding.
Snowden is, Snowden
hiding.
was above his time though. Snowden was above his time because Snowden did all of that before Bush's total control of watching your every move, tracking your phone. He did all that before all that. I don't think you could pull what Snowden pulled off. I don't think you could pull that off now. I think they would stop you before you could do it now. Right. Even the Silk Road guy, I don't think you could get that far these days, but yeah, I mean, no doubt Snowden's a legend.
From what I know of, cause I don't want to out somebody. I live with a guy that worked with Snowden in a roundabout way. So I'm know of what some of the things that we had in our ability, and this was back 15 years ago. So 15 years ago, the abilities of what we have. So I joke with people that I just assume my phone's always hacked. I've lived like that since then. It's because of that. But what was going on then is all of this technology was evolving faster than anything else. So while we were figuring out how to spy on other things, we weren't checking on who's spying on who. Now they have all the back end where I can go through and I can see all your logs and see everything. You could still do that stuff from back then, but it's a lot harder now to cover up your tracks. They've got a lot more systems in place to make sure that if you're trying to out things like that, they're able to pretty quickly figure out where it came from, the source of the leak.
The Dodds case with where they released the abortion clinic thing a lot earlier. There's something. So I wanted to go the snowflake bitch that ran to another country. I don't know if he's talking about Snowden, but I don't think that Snowden had any other choice but to run and hide. Or Hillary Clinton literally brought up we should drop a bomb on him. There was no way that they were going to let him get on. Now I don't agree with Snowden's opinions of the facts, but I do agree with the facts that he came up with. And the facts were, one of the bigger ones was the Apache helicopter that shot up the wedding party. That shit happens all the time. I mean, shit like that happens all the time. And Apache pilots or anyone that fucks something like that is going to use dark humor to get over it. I don't have a problem with the Apache pilot. Do I think it sucks? Do I think they think it sucks? Sure. Do I think Edward Snowden was right about exposing it? Sure. But I also think that it's, again, a little bit romantic. I think it's, until you've been put in a position to where you have to hunt and kill bad guys for a living when nobody's really done it or shown you how to do it. Remember, a lot of these guys that went into combat at the early parts of the Iraq war had never been to combat before. They don't really know how to navigate combat. And we didn't really know how to navigate a kind of like an Islamist, very unconventional style warfare. And we had two sides. We had a conventional forces and we had unconventional forces that were for the first time working almost side by side, hand in hand. Whereas Vietnam, everything was a little bit darker, a little bit more black opsy. This was a little bit more. So you had a lot of guys trying to navigate on how to use these bombs in a wartime effort. Communications was a bitch. Also the fact that you had deconfliction, who was working in what space. I mean, that's how the Canadian paratroopers got shot up in Afghanistan. It's we didn't know who was where. And so mistakes were going to get made. Now, I think that had Snowden been put in a position where he's got to make really split decisions that you have to sleep with day in and day out, and you're thinking leading up to them, right? So you're trying to war game in your brain. Cops have to deal with this a lot too. You're trying to war game every scenario. And if you war game every scenario night in and night out, sometimes you can second guess yourself. Sometimes you can say well, if I do this, but I don't do this, then these guys could die over here. But if I do this, and then at the end of the day, you're the one that has to make the decision on what you're going to do. It's kind of like a quarterback making his checks when he's throwing the ball. He doesn't always get it right. And mind you, a quarterback gets to practice a lot, doesn't he? He gets to watch the game tape. He gets to rehearse over and over again the same plays. He knows when the linebacker is going to come. He knows what the blitz package looks like, or at least he's familiar with it. And they still throw interceptions, you know? So again, going back to the whole Snowden thing, I thought that his opinions of the facts and that, you know, that these were war-thirsty, bloodthirsty savages. I mean, they're not. They're Apache pilots. They're college graduates. These guys have families. They're family men. They're not just, you know, some kind of war-crazed warmongers. But when you put them in a shitty situation, look, I've seen a lot of guys do a lot of shitty things, including myself. And I mean, there are a lot of scenarios that when I was in Afghanistan and I look back at it now and I'm embarrassed. I'm like, what was I? That's not me. I would never do that today. But in that moment, in those times when I was 19 and 20 years old, for whatever reason, they seem like a good idea to me. Let me give you a better example because I'm not going to like out myself here. But when I was a little kid, I gave my brother, who's 8 years younger, 9 years younger than me. I gave my little brother, his little friend, I had a paintball gun. And I said, you guys have 3 seconds to run or I'm going to shoot you with this paintball gun. And they were like, what? And I was like, 1. And they were like, what? And I was like, 2. And then I got to 3 and I blasted both of them. What the fuck was I thinking? Like, I'm so glad my parents beat the shit out of me for that one. It grounded me and took away the gun. But like, you know, it wasn't kind. It wasn't nice. Would I do something like that now? No, I wouldn't. So, you know, I think that Snowden though would be an example of somebody who did incredible independent journalism and paid a huge sacrifice for doing so. Russell Brand, another one. Russell Brand was uncovering COVID. Joe Rogan, another great one. Tim Pool, another good one. Tim Pool was doing independent journalism on the BLM riots, specifically the, if I remember correctly, he was the one that was trying to expose. He thought, if I remember this correctly, and I might be wrong, because again, that's normally this is now how this show goes, guys. But it was that he thought the conservatives were dropping off bricks to try to rile up some kind of narrative that the protesters, that the Antifa was, you know, crazy and violent and everything like that. But then when he got on boots on the ground, he realized that all the evidence was actually that the Antifa guys were planting these bricks and that it was like, you know, it had ties to some kind of George Soros funded type ordeal. And when he tried to write about it, he was canceled. I think, was it Vox or Vice?
Vice.
They wouldn't let that out. And so they red pilled Tim Pool, and now they call him an extreme, you know, far right wing extremist. You know, but Joe Rogan the same way. Joe Rogan was very Democrat, was, you know, very questionable of faith, Christianity, of anything conservative. You know, a lot into the drugs, and then, you know, he had doctors Malone and what was it? It was Malone and McCullough on, and then all of a sudden they tried to dig up all this stuff in the past just to show him, like, hey, look how fast this $100 million 5-year deal with Spotify can go away. If you want to cross lines, if you want to fuck around, we will take everything away from you. You'll have no voice, period. RFK Jr. is probably the better example of all of these. I mean, before RFK Jr. could even get out the gate, they took everything away from him. I mean, they took CNN away from him. He didn't get one interview when he was trying to run as a candidate.
They wouldn't even let on the ticket for places. They said, oh, you can't be on the ticket in this state. You didn't meet the requirements. You didn't do the filing for this. And then in doing so, they were finding out that Kamala Harris or Biden or all these other people that were involved, they also didn't qualify, but they were let in.
Yeah. They can break you. They can break you. People have emotions. People have time. It's not like this romance kind of style, do this or we'll kill you, and you're gonna take the noble stand like they do in the movie and say, no, I can do it, but I beat you over time. They send an allegation your way, and that kind of crushes you, and you kind of see the pressure that you get from your family and how people question you, and then they bring on the next thing, and then there's more pressure, there's more buildup, and then maybe they get real close to you and they start, you know, always having to look over your shoulder. Now you're not sleeping very well at night. Now you're afraid to eat, you're afraid to fly in a helicopter, and over time it just breaks a man down, and everybody at the end of the day is human. And I hate to judge people in their worst moments. That's why it's hard to judge soldiers or cops, because a good example of that is the Brevard County school shooting where the officer didn't go in. Do I think he's a coward? Sure. Do I think do I think he was scared in that moment? Yes, I do. I think all of those things. But do I think it was a crime? Because how do you know? How do you personally know how you're going to react until something actually happens that you weren't prepared for, that you didn't know about. You don't really know. And so is it a crime to be in that moment and your body just shuts down? I'm trying to think of a time when I was truly scared and I didn't perform. There's been a lot of times that I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I have the intestinal fortitude. I mean, I can go small scale, like with rugby, where I just didn't make the tackle because I was scared. I didn't put my body in. But would I like to say that in the moment when the game's on the line, that no matter what, I would put my body in front of this, tank that's running? Yeah, sure. I could sit here and say, like, no matter what, dude, if the game's on the line, you can count on me, boys. I'm going to sacrifice my. But the truth is, in that scenario, in that situation, there have been times where I've been like, I'm not fucking tackling that guy. I'm not going to do it, and does it suck? Sure. So I hate to put that on people. Another one is the SEAL who, may or may not have stabbed somebody in the throat and then pissed on their body or something like that. It
was Eddie Gallagher, wasn't it?
Eddie Gallagher, but at the end of the day, man, like I said, I did things in Afghanistan that I hope my kids never find out that I did. And those weren't even like war crimey. They were just dumb, mean, shitty things that I did to people who didn't even really fucking deserve it. I mean, petty things,
but I'm not given an out, but it's war. Like what people like, it's easy to sit from the comfort of your chair and judge body cameras like we do. And it's easier to judge from comfort of a chair when the fighting isn't even remotely close to you. You have to go across oceans to get there. So some of the stuff, it's hard for anybody that's never been there. It's hard for people that have been there when people throw out their opinions like, oh, I could do this, or I would have done this. And I would, like Eric said, I've seen people not do the things that they said that they thought they would do, like big giant men in the heat of the moment. Like there's a reason why the police officers, we put people through like crazy training scenarios to try to get them to snap, to see where their breaking point is, to know that, hey, when you're put in this situation, you can react, because when we're in this situation, I need you to not die so we can both stay alive and go home at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But it's one thing to have a great opinion, but go back to what he is. I personally think it's some 4D chess. I think that we're putting some out there. We're like,
I think you could be right. And this is what's fun. And it's all theories, right? Like nobody's right or wrong, because like we don't really know. And so, yeah, I think I would like to think that he is that good of a guy and that he's that successful because he's good and it's not a psyop. I would like to think that. And I would like to think that he's really doing this crazy good investigation and he's trying his best. That's my hope for Dan Bongino. That's my hope. My fear, though, is that they've already put on him some heat where they're like, look, bro, this is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to do to you. And you can either be very careful and tread lightly, or we're going to fuck your entire world completely up. Just like we did to Russell Brand, just like we did to Joe Rogan, just like we did with James O'Keefe and Project Veritas. I mean, hell, the girl that found Ashley Biden's diary and gave it to the police and had the diary given back to her, and then they told her she could sell or do whatever she want, that it's her diary. Now she went to jail. She went to prison. I mean, they can kind of do whatever the fuck they want. And I don't know, like, when you have a lot to lose, like Dan Bongino, when you have a family, like I have 5 kids, dude, and I have 5 kids and a wife, it would be very hard for me to accept, hey, you're going to do this and then we're going to throw you in jail and we're going to ruin your good name. And your kids will never know whether you fucked this woman, cheated on your wife, or you did this heinous thing, or you didn't. They'll always question you and you'll be rotting around in a prison. I think I would give up. I think I'd say, you know what? You win. You win. I know you can do that to me. I know you will do that to me. And I can't bear the thought of my daughters and my sons questioning that. And I'm not going to win this battle anyway. So maybe I will pull back and I will try to find another way or live to fight another day. But how long can you do that before you are completely just like, fuck it. I hate this job. I hate the government, but I've lost. They've beat me. I'm not the guy. And that could be it too, right? Like that self-doubt, like I'm not the guy. I'm not who I thought it was. I can't beat them. I thought I was a dragon slayer. Obviously, I'm not. Going back to Sear, that's the whole point. That was the whole point of the Vietnam. That's the whole point of why what's his name invented Nick Rowe. That was the whole point why he brought Sear to light and brought the importance of Sear, because once you've given in a little bit, it's easier just to join the other side. It's like, okay, I've already pissed on the Bible. I've already been fucked into this psyop. Like, sometimes they'll get you to say something, but they'll put a newspaper behind you and you'll be saying something completely different that they told you to say. And you're just trying to like avoid an ass whooping. And then they show you the video that they made and you're like, how was I that fucking stupid to fall for that? And now it looks like I'm seriously like, I'm a communist. And now everybody in the world hates me. And then they start showing you letters about like, you're a traitor and you're treason. When you're going to get back to the United States, you're going to go to prison because you're a traitor. Personally, you're not a traitor. Personally, you didn't really say those things in that context, but then you're like, well, fuck it. Maybe I am a loser. I suck. Everybody's right. I can't believe I was that stupid and I failed and there's nothing to go home to. So you just kind of give up. And that's what you do. And you just sit there and you wait to die and you just buy your time, but you're not trying to escape. You're not trying to manipulate the enemy. You're not trying to resist. You don't have that attitude anymore. You just kind of sit there, don't eat your food. You go in there and pick the garden, you pick the leaves, and because mentally you've lost.
But here's where I think what would make you walk away from $5 million? An opportunity to actually make a difference, an opportunity to actually get the answers like that. If you're already making $5 million and you're already bringing a lot of light on it, what benefit is there? Like I have to believe that there are some, just go ahead and say it, there's some men out there that still will do the right thing. There are a few people that when no one's looking, they'll hold the door for somebody. They'll, help them cross the crosswalk. They'll put the cart back. They'll, finally get down to the bottom of the investigation to find out charging people. Because he walked away from, $4.9 million last year. That's a lot of money.
But he might've walked away from $4.9 million because he knows that at the end of the day, he's going to write a book that's worth, or a movie deal, or he's going to even have a bigger podcast when he gets out of this. I mean, I'm not saying that that's his thing, but I think what's fun is always that, like, if you're going to be a free thinker or critical thinker, you have to go down all the rabbit holes, right? I'll never trust any of them 100%. Like, I'll never be like, Dan Bongino's playing 3D chess. End of story. I will not listen. I don't know the man that well. I've never broken bread with him. I don't personally know his family, and therefore I will not go to bat. Same as I won't go to bat for Trump. I've never broke bread with Donald Trump. I don't know Donald Trump. I don't know any of these people. I don't care. And I know people who know Donald Trump. Khalila Ali, for example, she spent a lot of time with Trump for the last 50 years of her life. She's been very close to the family. And so I always value what Khalila Ali said on my podcast years ago. And those are all nice things, but at the end of the day, I don't know them. And so I'm not going to trust them, but I do think this is interesting. I think it'll be interesting. So for Dan Bongino, the proof will have to be in the pudding. He'll have to show some receipts. I don't know how he goes back to podcasting if he doesn't, or the Bongino army. I don't know how he goes back to that unless they're just sheep. If he doesn't prove something. So he does have to prove something. He has to put his state. He has to have his sculpture, if that makes sense. Like every mayor has to have like their thing, like whether it's they get some park built, or I go back to Parks and Rec, right, where Leslie Knope, her whole thing is getting the park open. Every one of these politicians, they have their one thing, right? They have their case that solidifies them in the history books of the attaboy. So he'll have to put something to close. There'll have to be something to rest. So I'll be curious to see what it is that the hill that he goes to die on,
do you
or
think
that he's
there's
allowed
crossover?
to die on.
Do you think there's crossover with the Diddy trial?
I think that Pam Bondi coming out and saying there's tens of thousands of videos, and then her publicly saying it, that was an indicator that that somebody's making headway on the Epstein stuff. But if we're going to go with he's an Israeli Mossad spy or whatever, it doesn't go anywhere after that anyway. The big government is not going to allow you to do. That's what I'm saying. I think that there was a lot of people that would have disclosed all that information if they could. I don't think they can. If you want to know Eric's truth, the Tantra demonstration, I don't think they have the power to. I don't think Dan Bongino can see the whole record. I don't think they're going to give Dan Bongino what he wants, even if he wanted to. I think the powers that be will say, you don't get to have that information. I know you think you'd like to get that information, but you're not. We're not going to give that shit to you. And what do you want to do? You want to go tell the media that we went? He tried that. He said that. He literally said the New York office, the FBI office, would not give them the files. And what did the American public do? Talked a bunch of shit, made a couple of podcasts complaining about it, and that was the end of it. We had an FBI who actually denied them access to files for days and days. You saw what Hillary Clinton did to an email server in a few hours. What do you think that they did for the course of 3 or 4 days that they wouldn't let anybody into that field office in New York? I have not read the Marco Polo report, Bruce, but I if you think it's worth it, but you only get one chance to tell me to read a book, or I'll never trust you again. Not that you care if I trust you or I don't trust you, but is this the one you want to die on? Is this the one book? If you could pick one book for me to go home and read right now, is it Marco Polo report? And my wife might have read that one because I do feel like my wife's the one that reads constantly and then gives me cliff notes. But I'll tell you what, Bruce, you pick a book for me and then you go and read. I'll read it, but you have to read Pig Latin, a seriously funny true story. Head over to Amazon right now or Barnes and Nobles or wherever. It's Simon Schuster. It comes out August 26th. But if you get on the pre-order list now, even for you, Bruce, I will send you, if you DM me on social media webs, DM me, I will send you an autographed bookmark of a character from Pig Latin, a seriously funny true story, with an artist rendition from Jonathan Bates. Really fun. There's a little pre-order sale, and we'll do that. So anyway, guys, listen, what is this report on the Biden laptop Marco Polo? Okay, well, that is something I'd be extremely interested in because
644 easy pages of reading.
You know what though, that will be a fun one to go through.
Providing a true and thorough account of the topic and period is a difficult endeavor, but it's especially so when one is not afforded the luxury of decent classified documents or the passage of time. Yeah.
Who wrote it?
Let me go back.
Jeez, this is an hour-long show. Jesus.
Yeah, a quick 20 minutes.
Oh my God. I gotta get
It's a nonprofit research group exposing corruption and blackmail to drive an American renaissance. Given the explicit nature of the content on the laptop, this report is for adult readership. Errors at the fault of the author's own and identified will be amended immediately. Please email all inquiries to
Dude, it took 1 year. My book is what, 322 pages? Something like that. It took a year. After Simon Schuster had already paid me, it took them a year to edit 320 pages.
We are at 322.
322 pages. 321 full pages, but at 22 pages, page 22 doesn't really count. I can't imagine what editing a 600-page book would have been.
Or a 600-page report on factual stuff with you're going to need like here. I'll go down here into this very first the background.
Yeah, because the
page.
legal read, because it's nonfiction, I had to go through the legal read. The legal read for my book was like 5 days, and we spent like 8 hours a day with the lawyer going line by line.
Yep, all of the citations.
Yeah, the references.
All of that.
I just think it's incredible. I don't know, like everything's cool to me. Like when people build a big building, all the things that go into building a big building, all that stuff. So yeah. When I see a book that's like 600 pages, I start thinking about all the logistics behind writing the book, all the research, the time, where do you get the money, who's funding it? This is a nonprofit, so at least they're being funded, but zero mistakes has been vetted. I mean, don't say zero. Don't say zero. I'll bet you there's one. Shit, my book's probably
give me
one.
Give me a few minutes.
I got 5.
I'm not fat electrician style yet, but give me a few minutes. I'll find some report. I got nothing but time.
It's pretty cool. I mean, maybe there's not. I mean, these people are smart, but it's funny. Like my dad he used to say all the time, like, I hate reading these books when there's just a simple fucking error. Like, how I didn't even graduate college and I could see this error. And it's like, how do you get a book that sells millions of copies and nobody caught this error? And now that I've written a book and I've seen the people who have edited it, and still to this day, advanced readers, the book hasn't even come out, they're still finding like things. Like some things, there's arguments. Like some people are like, well, this word isn't in context. And then all the editors are like, yes, it is. And then some editors are like, actually, no, it's not. And then it's like an ego thing. Well, it's like, we'll just change it if there's a question. But then it's like, no, we don't just change things because there's a question. It's like, then they spend like a lot of time on it. So it's very interesting, man. If you've ever written a book, it's a pretty interesting process to go through. And then to sign a book deal is even crazier process to go through. But anyway, I've had a lot of fun doing it and I've learned a lot. I'm still a C- student at best, but guys, again, this wasn't a normal FAW KES news broadcast. I apologize. It wasn't nearly as professional or scripted as we normally do. So I encourage you, if you're a first time listener, to please go back and listen to even the episode that we just released today about the media genocide cover up. And it's not really a genocide, but we could say it's definitely a lot of murders going on in South Africa and have been going on for a long time. And there's definitely something there that the media should look into and report on, but they're not. And instead they're being overtly manipulative and overtly trying to persuade you of a certain narrative. And it makes you, it just begs the question, why? Anyway, it was a really great episode with a lot of receipts. So go back and check that episode out. For everybody that enjoyed this little cutesy time, this little funsy times where we had some really good debates in there and a lot of good theories. At the end of the day, do I think Cash Patel is a good guy? Or Dan Bongino is a good guy? Listen, I like to give anybody the benefit of the doubt. But would I let them babysit my children? No, fuck no. Would I let them borrow my car? Maybe. Probably, yeah. Honestly, I'd let them borrow my car. Would I give them access to my cell phone? No.
No, I would, because I don't care, because there's nothing on there.
No, it's not that there's nothing on there. I don't want them to put something on there.
Yep, that's the other side. Is then you could put something on it for sure. But yeah, I know that you could. I don't even need to have your battery in your phone. That's a whole fun other thing. Real quick, the Buffalo school system. I'm watching every bit about that.
Oh, we need to do a Patreon on that, don't we?
So I wouldn't say where I'm kind of letting it do its course, but there's things in motion with that. And Rich, Angry Cops, and Fat Electrician, Unsub, and Donut, those all guys, they've been doing such a great job of literally dropping the hammer on that school system. But what just scares the shit out of me is how many people have contacted me and Eric both about, hey, this is exactly the same thing that's going on in my school system here where I live. And it's not just Buffalo. That's what absolutely scares the shit out of me. So I'm kind of want to let it ride its course, so you can kind of use this is how you negotiate these waters. If you're going through this similar system with yours, this is how you go about it. You go to the school board meetings and you could do this and you get this and you vote. So I want to say I'm not ignoring it, but they're doing a really good job. And I don't want to take any other thunder away.
Yeah. And I used to be on that network that dropped that. So Tetherball Network, I believe Unsubbed is all part of those guys. And so I've podcasted with Rich before and a couple of the guys from Unsubbed as well. And they do great work, and they're just fun guys, and they're no slouches. And of course, Angry Cops, he's no slouch either. So that I have been watching that play out. I've just been letting them do their thing for a while, and then we'll cover it because and I don't think Rich is a guy that's going to quit very soon, but I mean, he is treading on thin ice, and he's going to see that but here's the thing though, is Rich gets to move up. Rich isn't losing everything he loves because he makes more money probably working with Unsubbed, and he knows that Black Rifle Coffee and Tetherball Network, Drinking Bros, all those guys will have his back when he leaves law enforcement. I truly think that he does the things that he does because he loves it. I really do. And so he doesn't have anything to lose right now, and he has everything to gain from this. And so that's a great place to be in. That is a great place to be in. So for all of you guys joining the chats for the very first time, thank you guys so much. Go back and listen to our other episodes. We appreciate it. You can check out our law enforcement segment called Failure to Stop on the Failure to Stop podcast. We also have Alley in the Archives, which is true crime predating the 1900s. It's phenomenal. It's scary. It's sketchy. That releases tomorrow, first episode. Then we also have the Free Holtzclaw Project podcast showing you all of the evidence over the course of 1 year why Daniel Holtzclaw is spending 260 plus years in prison for a crime he absolutely did not commit or come close to committing or commit any crimes in the past like it. He is simply guilty of being a white Christian male police officer in a very political, hyper-political time, and he is now sitting in prison when there is evidence that shows the exact opposite. He is the exact opposite of everything that the media painted him out to be. And it's another great example of how terrible the media is. And I think the last episode of that, where we show the 911 audio and then what the media said the 911 audio is, it's like that in itself should show you all that you need to know about this case. But that's a great one. And then we have Santana True Crime, a real life detective, an investigator, still current law enforcement officer, doing today's most intense true crime segments from a law enforcement perspective. So that's a lot on this network, on the C- Media Network to consume. And we appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. Hopefully you will subscribe to our channel and check out some more of our stuff. And we love the debates. And I'm going to read the shows. I'm going to read this book. Bruce, let me just be transparent with you. It's going to take me 600 pages. Give me 6 weeks. Honestly, because I do have a 300-page book in maybe 3 weeks. I can do, say, if it's a really good book, I can hit it in a week. I just don't have time. I have 5 kids. Give me 6 weeks, follow back up, and I'll let you know what I thought about the book. It's going to take me some time to read that one. I don't really read a lot of big books like that. And that doesn't look like something I can just like skim through, to be honest with you.
It'll just probably end up like a bunch of more rabbit holes.
And that happens a lot too. We'll try it. We'll have fun with it. And I appreciate all you guys. Thank you guys from myself, everybody here at the FAWKES News Studio. Until next time, cheers.
See you.